Hi guys, good morning. Online students, is my voice audible?
Good morning, sir. Yes.
Yeah, very good morning. Guys, in the last session, we discussed about how to develop our web applications by using Spring Web MVC. So as part of this application development, we used several annotations. As part of this Web MVC, we worked with several annotations. Those are controller, request mapping, get mapping, post mapping, request parameter, path variable, and response body. Controller is a annotation that is used to represent our Java class as a controller class. Okay. Next one, we have request mapping annotation, which is used to map our method to the URL pattern. URL pattern we can map at the class level as well as at the method level. So if you specify URL pattern only at the method level, there is a chance of getting ambiguity problem. To resolve that ambiguity problem, we are going to specify at the class level as well as at the method level. Then we have get mapping. It is used to map our method to get request with a URL pattern. Then we used post mapping. To map your method to post request, go for post mapping. Request param. It is used to map URL pattern to. It is used to read the data from the URL. Any query parameter that is coming from the UI to server, we can read those query parameters by using request param annotation. Next one, path variable. Path variable is the annotation that is used to read path parameters. Next one, response body. From the controller, if you want to send direct response to the client without any UI page, then we will use @response body annotation. So did you work on the assignment? Any luck? Able to do it? Yes, okay, good. So today we are going to understand how to handle exceptions in the Spring Web MVC. How do we implement exception handling in our Spring MVC based applications, right? Exception handling in Spring Web MVC applications. Good. Now, already we know what is exception handling. In the Java, we have exception handling keywords like try keyword is available, try available, catch available, throws available, and we have finally. These are the keywords which are available in the Java in order to handle exceptions in our Java application. Whenever exception occurred, our program will be terminated abnormally. When exception occurred, our program will be terminated abnormally. Now, I don't want to terminate my program abnormally. For that, we can go for this exception handling keywords. Now, let me take one simple MVC application, new Spring Starter project, Web MVC exception app. Right. Click on next. I'm taking time leaf dependency and web dependency and dev tools. Web dependency is used to create web application by using Spring Boot. Time leaf dependency for presentation. Dev tools to restart the server. Click on next and finish. Yeah. Project is created. Let me create one simple controller in this project. New class demo controller. To represent this class as a controller, we will be using @controller annotation. Now, let me write one method public string get welcome message. Okay, so this method is taking model object as a parameter. So now this method will return UI page. So return the page name I am giving as index. Let us map this method to a get request by using @get mapping, something like this, right? So we are writing one controller class. Inside the controller, we are writing one method. That method is mapped to get request by using get mapping. It is having URL pattern as /welcome. Method return type is a string. What is the meaning of string? View name. What is the view that you want to return from the method? We are representing by using string. Then we have model. Okay, so model is a interface that is used to send the data to the UI in the form of key and value. Let me send some data to the UI. Model dot add attribute. We will send the data in the form of key and value. Send the data in the form of key and value. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah. Now, so here we are writing a method. That method is mapped to get request, and it is mapped. There is some issue with projector. Yeah. Method is mapped to get request by using /welcome. Key comma value. Key I am giving as a message and some value. Okay. So I want to send the get request to this method. Then this method will return index page. In that index page, we can access the data by using key. So where to create the view pages, guys? Go to templates. In the templates, new file. So we are going to create one HTML file. Finish. Now, so a normal file is created. For that file, we want to add the HTML template. Okay. So let me copy that from the previous project. Bootstrap is available. Now, we don't need all this form and all that stuff. Just we need to display one message. In order to display that message, what is the tag? PTH : text is equal to $of message. Okay, our index page is ready. Let us run this application and see the behavior. Refresh, run as boot application. We are running our Spring Boot application, which contains a controller method. Now, if we send the request to the controller, we will get the response as expected. /welcome. Now, when I send /welcome, no static resource welcome. 8080/welcome. What is our URL pattern? Sorry. I should run the 16th application, not 15th one. Yeah. So run as boot application. In the 16th project, we are having our controller, which is binded to /welcome, which will return index. To that index page, we are sending the data in the form of key and value by using model object. Now refresh. So we are able to access that page. Welcome to Ashok IT. So this is happy scenario. Our method is executing as expected. For example, inside this method, if we get some error, if we get some exception inside this method, then what is the behavior of our method? Okay, so let me refresh my project and let me run this project. Run as boot application. Go to the console, see this application started. Now send the request. So when I send the request to this page, now we are getting error 500. 500 nothing but it is a server side problem. The method which we are trying to execute in the controller, that method is giving some exception. Whenever exception occurs, directly it is showing that exception to the client, saying that there is a problem in our application. status 500. In the demo controller line number 15, having some issue. Because of that, the exception information is displaying to the client directly. Okay. If we display exception to the client directly like this, can client understand what is the problem in our application? Can client understand what is the problem in our application? Our client cannot understand the problem. Client cannot understand the problem. Okay, it is not recommended to display this kind of exception to the client. It is not recommended to display this kind of exception to the client. So whenever we get such kind of exception, we need to display one beautiful message to the client. Some problem occurred. Please try after some time. Okay, I want to display that message to the client when there is a problem in our application. So currently, when the request is coming to our controller method, that method is having some issue. Whenever the issue occurred, immediately the method execution got stopped and it is sending the exception information to the client directly in the browser. This is not the recommended approach. We should not display exception stack trace to the client like this. Then what we need to do? We need to handle that exception. We need to handle that exception. In order to handle exceptions in the WebMVC application, we are having two ways. In two ways, we can implement exception handling. We can implement exception handling. What are those two ways? First one is local exception handling. Second one is global exception handling. So when you are going for WebMVC based application to handle the exceptions, there are two ways available. One is called local exception handling. Second one is called global exception handling. Local exception handling, nothing but it is specific to only one controller. It is specific to only one controller. If you implement local exception handling, that will work only for one controller. If you want to implement exception handling for all the controllers, entire project, then you need to go for global exception handling. So in two ways, we can handle exceptions in the Spring Web MVC. One is called local exception handling. Second one is called global exception handling. Now, let's go for local exception handling first. Local exception handling, nothing but in which controller you will handle, it will work only for that controller. Let me write one method, public string handle exception or handle exception. So what exception is there? I'm just getting that exception as a parameter. So this method will return one page called error page. That is a common page. Whenever problem occurred, we should not display this kind of information to the client. Instead of displaying this information, we are going to display one error page to the client. Okay, then when this method should be executed, this method should be executed whenever exception occurred in the class. So to do that, we will use one annotation called exception handler value. So any exception which occurred in our application, for that exception, this method should be executed. Now, so here I am writing system.out.println e.getMessage. Why that exception occurred? I want to print on the console. Then I want to return a page called error page. So let us create one error page in our application. How we are having index.html. Similarly, we are creating a page called error.html. So in the error.html, simple one message we are going to display. Some problem occurred. Please try after some time. Please try after some time. That's it. So this is the page that I want to display whenever there is a problem in our application. So I have two methods in my controller. One method is used to handle normal request. Whenever a request comes with a slash welcome, that will be handled by this method. This method is having string as a return type, which represents view page. This method is having model as a parameter, which is used to send the data from controller to UI in the form of key and value. So here there is a problem in our method. What is the behavior of our application when the problem occurred? Earlier we have seen when the problem occurred, our method is sending error information to the client. Exception stack trace. This is called exception stack trace. Our method is sending this exception stack trace to the client when there is a problem in our method. Okay. Now see here, let's run the same application again. This time our class contains exception handler annotation method. What is the purpose of this exception handler? In this controller, when exception occurred, then this method should be executed. What this method is doing? It is returning a page called error. The error page we are using to display some error message. Okay, refresh, right click, run as boot application, clear the console. Now send the request. What happened now? Some problem occurred, please try after some time. So earlier when I send the request to that URL, direct exception information is coming. Now the exception information is not coming. It is saying that some problem occurred, please try after some time. Okay, good. Let me add one more method in the same controller and see the behavior. Public string get some greet message. I'm taking model as a parameter. Model dot add attribute key comma value, same key, and I will change the value. So I'm giving the value as something like good morning. Then return index page. Return index page. So this method also, let's map to URL pattern by using @get mapping. So for this, I'm giving slash greet as a URL pattern. So I have one controller with two methods. One is get request method with a welcome URL. Second one is also get request method with a greet URL. So greet message and welcome message. Let us run our controller. Good. Now first let's go to greet URL localhost colon 8080/greet. We are getting the message as a good morning. So that method is not having any problem. That method does not have any exception. That's why that method is working as expected. It is returning index page. In the index page, we are accessing the key. That key value we are able to print here. But when I send the request to /welcome, what happened? This method is having a problem. Because of this problem, that's whenever the exception occurred in this class, then this method is executing. What this method is doing? It is simply returning error page. So this is called exception handling in the WebMVC application. To handle that exception in the WebMVC application, we are using one annotation. What is that annotation? Exception handler. So can you tell me what is the purpose of this exception handler annotation method? To execute whenever exception occurred in our application. So here I am writing exception.class. What is the meaning of exception.class? What is the meaning of exception.class? It should execute for any type of exception occurred in the project. For example, if I specify like null pointer exception.class, what is the meaning of that? this method will be executed only when null pointer exception occurred in the application. Clear? Good. Fine. So this exception handler method is available inside the demo controller. If you write exception handler method inside particular controller, then that is called local exception handling. What is the meaning of local exception handling? That will work only for that particular controller. Can we test that? Okay. Let me create one more controller and see that a handler is executing or not. New class. Let me create one controller with a name called product controller, something. So product controller is available. Let us take one method inside this product controller slash product get a product name. Okay. Model dot attribute message. This is Samsung laptop, something like that. Get product. Let me make it as a controller. At the rate controller. So let me write integer I is equal, or else let me do like this. String s is equal to null s dot length method. So what we are doing in this method now? We are trying to provide null pointer exception. Okay. So let us run this application now. So here demo controller having a method which will give the exception. Product controller also having a method which will give the exception. Now refresh, run as boot app. I'm running this application now. Go to the console, clear this. Good. Let's go for slash welcome. When I send the request for the welcome method, exception handling working or not working? It is working. Slash greet. There is no exception. The method is executing as expected. Now go for slash product. Go for slash product. Now okay, got it guys. So whenever the problem is occurred, directly it is looking for the page which is called error.html. Let me give the name as error view.html. So here I'm giving the page name as error view. So whenever the problem occurred, if you have a page called error.html, directly it is going to execute. Now I changed the page name from error to error view.html. So refresh, run as boot application. Clear the console. Good. Now, so slash product. When I send the request to slash product, is it working or it is not working? Now send the request to greet. Greet method working as expected. Send the request to slash welcome. Exception handling working. For the product, exception handling working or it is not working? Not working. So that means what type of exception handling we have done? We have done local exception handling. What is the meaning of local exception handling? What is the meaning of local exception handling? Local exception handling means the method is available inside the particular controller. The method is available inside particular controller. So if the method is available inside the particular controller, that will execute only when the exception occurred in that controller. So in my project, I have 100 controllers. So is it recommended to go for local exception handling, or it is not recommended to go for local exception handling? It is not recommended to go for local exception handling. We need to go for global exception handler. How to go for global exception handler? Let me create one more class called app exception handler. Okay, so I am keeping one package with a name called exception. Here I'm writing one method app exception handler. So whatever the method you have to handle the exception, remove that from the controller remove that from the controller and add in the class. Remove that from the controller and add that inside the class. So the class is exception handler class. So we are taking a class with a name called exception handler class. So inside this class, we are writing a method which is responsible to handle any type of exception in the project. How can I say any type of exception in the project? Because we are giving exception dot class. Exception is a super class for all the exceptions in the project. Okay, so it is used to handle any type of exception in the project. What is this? Yeah, now, so to here I have created one class. Inside the class I have one method. That method is having at the rate exception handler annotation. This method should execute for any type of exception occurred in the entire application. So we need to represent this as a global exception handler. To represent this as a global exception handler, we are going to use one more annotation which is called controller advice. What is that annotation? Controller advice. What is the meaning of controller advice? Global exception handler. So this controller advice will be checking entire application. This is going to check entire application. If any exception occurred in our entire application, any controller, any service, any class, no problem. In the whole project, if an exception occurred, then this method will be executed. Okay. So what is the purpose of at the rate controller advice? Can you tell me what is the purpose of at the rate controller advice? It is used to represent global exception handling. What is the meaning of global exception handling? What is the meaning of global exception handling? Global exception handling means handle the exception in the entire application. Local exception handling means handle the exception specific to particular controller. Okay, very good. Let's run this application and try now. Refresh. Run as boot app. Clear the console. Okay, the application started, guys. The application is started. Now go and access first greet method. Is it working? That method does not have any problem. It is working. Now go to welcome method. There is a problem in the method, that is arithmetic exception. So that's why exception handler executed. Go for product and send the request. Now product is a separate controller. So welcome controller, welcome method in the demo controller, product method in the product controller. Two controller methods having the problem. Whenever the problem is occurred, the handler is executing or handler is not executing. Handler is executing. So can we say this is global exception handling in our project? Can we say it is a global exception handling in our project? Yes. What is the meaning of global exception handling? What is the meaning of global exception handling? Local exception handling means specific to particular controller. Global exception handling means it will work for entire project. If we create a class like below, then it will handle any type of exception occurred in the application. When exception occurred, the error view page will be displayed to the client. When exception occurred, error view page will be displayed to client. Okay, so instead of normal page, this error view page will be displayed to the client, because whenever exception occurred, this method will be executed. This method is returning error view page. Are you clear with this one? You no need to write here try catch blocks and all. Okay. So whenever exception occurred, I want to execute some method. For that, we can go for this approach. We have learnt two new annotations now. So what are the two new annotations we learned now? One is at the rate exception handler. Second one is at the rate controller advice. So first one is at the rate controller advice. Second one is at the rate exception handler. Okay. What is the purpose of exception handler method, guys? What is the purpose of at the rate exception handler method? At the rate exception handler method is used to represent that for which exception that method should be executed. So you can specify any type of value. If I specify null pointer exception dot class, what is the meaning of that? If I specify null pointer exception dot class, what is the meaning of that? That method will be executed whenever null pointer exception occurred in the application. So if I specify that, that method will be executed whenever null pointer exception occurred. Controller advice. What is the meaning of controller advice? What is the meaning of controller advice? Controller advice is used to represent global exception handler. Okay. Sir, currently the exception is occurring in the controller only now. Suppose if exception occurred in the service, then what will happen? Currently we are writing a controller, demo controller is available, product controller is available. Instead of controller, suppose if exception occurred in the service, will it be handled or will not be handled? Will be handled or will not be handled? Will be handled. Global exception. What is the meaning of global exception? Entire project. Let us see that. Let me create one new class, product service, something like this. Service package. How to represent this class as a service? By using at the rate service annotation. Then let's write public string get name. Okay. I want to return some name. But before returning the name, I'm writing integer I is equal to 10 by 0. Integer I is equal to 10 by 0. Now go to product controller. Let us inject product service. How to inject it? How to inject one object into another object? Public private product service. For this we are going to use auto wiring. Now, so here I'm going to call service dot get name. Service dot get name. Whatever the name we are getting, I want to send that name to my UI. Okay. Now remove this. My product controller does not have any problem. My product controller is simply calling service method. Inside the service method, there is a problem which will give arithmetic exception. Okay, clear this, run this. Application started. Welcome, exception, error page loaded, greet, no exception, actual page loaded, / product, problem, error page loaded. So when I send the request to / product, where is that exception is coming? 1 minute, guys. Online students, is it visible now? Is it visible now? Yes, good. So I have created one service class with a name called product service. So in the product service class, I have created one method. For that class I'm representing as a string bean by using @ service annotation. So this is the new class I have created. Product, service. So to represent this class as a service class, we are using @service annotation. Inside the controller, we have injected that service. Earlier, in the controller method, we are getting the exception, right? But now, inside the controller, there is no exception available. In the controller, I have injected the service class. This is the new class I have created. Online students, please look into this. This is the new class I have created by using @service. There is one method. Now my service method will give arithmetic exception. When you go to the controller, I have injected the service in the controller. My controller method is calling service method. Whatever the response we are getting, we are adding to the model attribute and we are returning index. Now send the request to the product. Problem is there in the controller or problem is there in the service? Service. So when the exception occurred in the service, our handler is executed or our handler not executed. When the problem occurred in the service, handler is executed or handler not executed? Handler executed. So now you understand what is the meaning of global exception handling. Yes, what is the meaning of global exception handling? What is the meaning of global exception handling? Global exception handling means that will execute when the exception occurred in the entire application. It's not specific to particular class or not specific to particular controller. So this is common for entire application. For example, whenever null pointer exception occurred, I want to load one page. When arithmetic exception occurred, I want to load one page. When SQL exception occurred, I want to load one page. Can we do that? How can we do that? We need to create separate methods for every exception. One method to handle only null pointer exception, one method to handle only arithmetic exception, one method to handle only SQL exception. How can we change that? Here value. Here I am giving value as exception.class. What is the meaning of value exception.class? Common for all the exceptions. Are you clear with this one? Good. So with this we understood how to handle exceptions in our Spring MVC application. Again, when you go for the REST API, there also we are going to learn exception handling, same concept. But currently we are returning error page when there is a problem. Tomorrow when we go for REST API development, when there is a problem, we don't return the error page. We will send error response to the client application in the JSON format. So once you go for the REST API, we will learn how to handle exceptions in the REST API. Currently, we understood exception handling in the WebMVC application. Okay, good. The next topic, guys, how to make Jetty as default container. Now we are creating one Spring Boot application. We are running our boot application. When we run our Spring Boot application, we are getting embedded server. Okay, what is the default embedded server we are getting for our application, guys? Tomcat. Refresh this, right click, run as boot application. You see our console. So inside the console, it will display what is our default embedded container. Run as boot application. Go to console. Now you check it. What is coming by default? Tomcat is initialized with the port number 8080. So can we say Tomcat is a default embedded container for our Spring MVC application? Yes. Whenever you add WebMVC starter, then by default, Tomcat is coming as a default container with 8080 port number. Can we change that port number also? Can we change that port number? Where to change that port number? In the properties file, we can change that port number. In the interview, they will ask a question. I don't want Tomcat as a embedded container. Can you make a Jetty server as a embedded container? Spring Boot will support 3 embedded containers, guys. One is called Tomcat, another one is called Jetty, third one is called Netty. Tomcat, Jetty, and Netty. This Tomcat is default. So if you don't make any changes, whenever you add web starter, dependency in the pom.xml, then we are going to get Tomcat as a default container. Then Jetty is available, Netty. When to go for a Netty? If you are working with a reactive programming by using Webflux dependency, then you are going to get Netty as a default server. If you add only web starter, you will get Tomcat as a default container. If you add Webflux starter, then you will get Netty as a default container. Now, the question is how to change from Tomcat to Jetty. I want to run my application on the Jetty server. In order to work with the Jetty server, we need to make some changes to our pom.xml file. In our project, we need to make some changes to pom.xml. You see here, Tomcat starter is coming by default. We are getting Tomcat starter by default. What we need to do is go to web starter. There is a concept called, in the JRTP we discussed what is exclusion, dependency exclusion. So whenever you add web starter dependency, by default Tomcat is coming as a child dependency. Okay, but I want web starter, I don't want Tomcat. So I want web starter, I don't want a Tomcat. When you add the web starter, Tomcat is coming by default. When you add the web starter, Tomcat is coming by default. In the exclusions, let us write the exclusion. In that exclusion, let us specify group ID, artifact ID of Tomcat. Okay, guys. Now you see, I have a web starter. Inside the web starter, I have written exclusions. Inside the exclusions, I have written a exclusion. There I have given group ID and artifact ID. So what is the meaning of that? I am removing Tomcat starter from my project build path. I want web starter, but I don't want Tomcat starter. We are excluding that. Good. The next one, instead of boot starter Tomcat, we need to make boot starter Jetty. 2 changes I have done here. First change, what is the first change I have done? I have excluded Tomcat from the web starter and I have added Jetty starter. Okay, save this pom.xml. Now let us refresh our application. Do the Maven update because the dependency is changed. When you make some dependency changes, it's better to go for Maven update. Okay, Maven update completed. Let us run our application. Run as boot app. Now, which server is loaded? Jetty server is loaded. What is the default port number for the Jetty? 88. From here the process is same. So instead of Tomcat server, we have started Jetty server. That also will run on the port number 8080. If you want to make port number change, then you need to go for application.properties file. Very good. Here, note down these changes. In Spring Boot supports below 3 types of embedded servers. In Spring Boot, we can use below 3 embedded containers. One is a Tomcat, second one is a Jetty, third one is Netty. So whenever we add web starter, then Tomcat will come by default. Whenever we add WebFlux, Netty will come as by default. To change from Tomcat to Jetty, we need to make below changes in pom.xml file. What is that? What is the change we need to make? Exclude Tomcat starter from web starter. Exclude Tomcat starter from web starter and add Jetty starter. Add the Jetty starter. So this is the configuration. Inside the web starter, I'm removing the Tomcat and I'm adding Jetty starter. Okay. Good. So this is my web starter. I'm excluding Tomcat from that and I'm adding Jetty starter for that. Are you guys clear with this one? How to change embedded container in the Spring Boot. When you add web starter, by default Tomcat. When you add WebFlux starter, by default Netty. So if you want to change from Tomcat to Jetty, we need to make below changes in the pom.xml. Exclude Tomcat starter from web starter and add Jetty starter like below. Good. Oh, sorry. Exclude Tomcat starter from web starter and add Jetty starter like below. So with this we are able to make Jetty as a default container. Good. Perfect. So as of now, we are using TimeLeaf as a presentation technology. So what is the purpose of this TimeLeaf, guys? What is the benefit we are getting with the TimeLeaf? What is the benefit we are getting with the TimeLeaf? What is the benefit we are getting with the TimeLeaf? We are able to add dynamic nature to our HTML pages. By default, HTML pages are used for static content. So if you want to add dynamic nature for the HTML, then we are adding TimeLeaf. So to add the TimeLeaf, we are using TimeLeaf starter. Very good. Okay. So as of now, we understood what is WebMVC. So can you tell me what is WebMVC? Can you tell me what is WebMVC, guys? WebMVC is one module which is used to develop web applications by using Spring. In the Spring framework, WebMVC is a module. Using that module, we can develop web applications as well as REST APIs in our application. It supports for both C2B development as well as B2B development. C2B nothing but UI pages will be available. B2B nothing but UI pages will not be available. Now, so do you know what is MVC architecture? Can you tell me what is MVC architecture? What is MVC architecture? Spring MVC architecture, dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, model and view, view resolver, view component. What is a dispatcher servlet? What is dispatcher servlet? Dispatcher servlet is a front controller that is responsible to perform pre-processing and post-processing of a request. Whenever the request comes, it will be taken by dispatcher servlet. Then it will talk to handler mapper. What is the role of handler mapper? What is the role of handler mapper? Handler mapper is used to identify which request is mapped to which method in the controller. It will scan all the controller classes, all the controller methods. It will identify this URL pattern is mapped to which controller class method. Then the handler mapper will give controller information to dispatcher servlet. Then what the dispatcher servlet will do, guys? What the dispatcher servlet will do? Dispatcher servlet is going to call the controller method. What that controller method will do? It will execute the logic. It will return model and view. What is a model? What is a view? Model is a map which represents data in the form of key and value. View is a logical file name. Whatever the data you are sending in the model, you can access by using that view page. Inside the view page, we can access our model data. If you access the key, it will give the value for that. Then what is the view resolver? What is the view resolver? View resolver is used to identify where our view pages are available. Then what is the view component? It will render model data on the UI page, will give to dispatcher. Finally, dispatcher servlet will give the final response to the client. Okay. Then we are able to create our first web application by using Spring Boot. So we are creating Spring Starter project with web dependency. When you add web dependency, you can create web application as well as you can create REST application also, and it will provide Tomcat as a default container. You no need to deploy your application in the server separately. That will be taken care by Spring Boot. Embedded server. What is the meaning of embedded server? The default server we are getting along with the Spring Boot. So if you create a boot application, by default we are getting Tomcat as a server, which is called embedded server. How many embedded servers supported by Spring Boot? 3. Tomcat, Jetty and Netty. How to change from Tomcat to Jetty? You need to make 2 changes in the pom.xml. Exclude Tomcat from the web starter and add the Jetty starter. How to get the Netty as a embedded server? Reactive programming. If you add Webflux starter, you will get that Netty as a default server. What is the time leaf? Time leaf is a technology we are using to develop our presentation logic. So we are using HTML pages for the presentation, but in the HTML, we can't work with the dynamic data. HTML represents only static data. To add dynamic data to the HTML, we are using time leaf. The next one, how to send data from controller to UI. So there are 2 ways. One is model and view class or model interface. So you can send the data from controller to UI using model or model and view in the form of key and value. How to send the data from UI to controller? By using query parameters, by using path parameters. If you want to send any non-sensitive data, then you can send that by using URL in the form of key and value, query parameter, direct value, path parameter. How to read the query parameter? What is the annotation? @request param annotation. How to read the path parameters? @path variable. Request body. When you send the form data, when you submit the form with the post request, form data going to the server in the request body. What is the response body? What is the response body? In general, controller method will return UI pages, right? I don't want to return UI page from the controller. I want to send direct response to the client. Asynchronous request, direct response to the client. How to send direct response to the client? By using response body. How to develop timely for forms? Form binding technique is available. Java class object will be mapped to the form th colon object. Form fields will be mapped to our class variables by using th colon field property. So why we need to go for this form binding, guys? Why we need to go for form binding? What is the benefit we are getting with the form binding? Huh? Why we need to go for the form binding? So that our object data can be displayed in the form easily, and form data we can capture in the form of object easily. So that is called data binding. The data which is there in the object, I want to populate in the form fields. When you click on edit button, your object data populating in the form. Whenever you add the new record, when you submit the form, your form data is coming in the form of object. So in order to achieve data binding, we are going for form binding technique. What is the meaning of form binding technique? Establishing the relation between Java class variables and form fields. What is the benefit we will get if we establish the relation? If we establish the relation, what is the benefit we will get? Field data can be stored into the form. Object data can be stored into the form, right? Two-way data binding can be achieved. Okay. So next one, we need to learn, we learned about exception handling. Okay. So exception handling. Exception handling in MVC app. Okay. So there are two ways to handle exceptions in the MVC application. What are those two ways to handle the exception in the MVC application? Come on. One is local exception handling. Second one is global exception handling. What is the meaning of local exception handling? It is specific to only one controller. What is global exception handling? It is applicable for all the exceptions in the project. So if any exception occur in the application, then that will be handled by that method. Got my point? Good. So these three things we need to learn. How to implement validations in the form, how to send emails by using Spring Boot, how to work with actuators in the Spring Boot. Along with this, we developed one application, CRUD operations project. So we are able to create one bookstore app. We are able to add the book, retrieve the book, edit the book, update the book, delete the book. That delete also we have implemented in two ways, guys. One is soft delete, another one is hard delete. One is soft delete, another one is hard delete. What is the difference between soft delete and hard delete? Difference between soft delete and hard delete. Hard delete means that record will be deleted from the table permanently. Soft delete means the record we are making the record as inactive. We are making the record as inactive. So what is the benefit if you go for soft delete? Data we are not losing. The data will be available in the database. When we want, we can get the data back. But if you go for a hard delete, the data will not be available. Are you clear with this one? Good. So today task, two assignments, guys. What we need to learn tomorrow, that you need to develop. I want you to try implementing form validations as well as email sending. That is the assignment for today. These are the annotations we learned so far now. So the next assignment, develop, implement form validations, develop WebMVC, form-based application with the form validations. Okay, so minimum length, maximum length validation, email validation, name minimum 3 characters, maximum 8 characters, email, it should be a valid email ID, phone number, only digits you need to enter. So I want you to implement that application with a form validations. Then send email. Okay, develop WebMVC form based application with form validations. I want the fields as name, email, phone number. Okay, so if note, once form is submitted, send email to given email ID with a registration success message. Okay, so you are going to develop both, you will implement in the single application. You need to develop a form. That form will contain 3 fields, guys. For these 3 fields, validations are required. For the name, minimum length 3 characters, maximum length 8 characters. All the 3 fields are mandatory. Name, email, phone number. And once you submit the form, you take the data from the form to the controller by using form binding. Then you send the email to the customer saying that your registration success. So you need to implement email sending functionality along with the form validations also. That is the assignment for today. Okay, so all these things are I'm not sure how many of you completed Ajax. Able to do it? Anybody not able to do? How many of you done? Can you raise your hand? Ajax call. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 people implemented Ajax call in the MVC application. What about the remaining people? When I have given that as a task, that is your duty to complete that. You have to complete that task on your own. You need to do, you got 3 days of time. Friday morning, Saturday morning class completed. Saturday full day is available. Sunday full day is available. Monday full day is available. So total 3 days of time, around 70 hours of time. If you are not able to complete, if you did not complete, that means you did not try that. You don't have interest to do that. If you are really interested, within 3 hours, you can learn that Ajax and you can implement that Ajax call in the MVC application. Only 4 people completed. It's a shame on you guys. 3 days of time, you are not able to develop one small functionality. You have to learn and you have to do it. And today, new assignment. You need to understand how to implement form validations in the Spring Web MVC and how to send the email to the customer with the given email ID. We are already taking email from the customer. For that email, we need to send a registration message saying that your registration got success. Got my point? Good. Any questions, anyone? If anyone not tried, please do these assignments today. Third one and fourth one. Ajax implementation, form validation with email sending. Okay, good. Online students, any questions?
Hi, Ashok. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Actually, every time we are giving localhost column path parameter, is there any way we can configure this is my entry point like a localhost point port after this? We can give welcome say anything we can give like that.
Yes, sir. That is URL pattern, right? Whatever the URL pattern you want for the method, you can configure that.
No, but every time we are going to the browser, we are giving it right
Okay, so
localhost.
if
We
you
need
don't
to
want
go
to
this
give,
way.
then you need to remove this URL pattern. If you give just a slash, that will become a default method.
But I want welcome as my first entry point.
you can't do that, sir. You cannot configure that. If you can remove this one, then slash will be your URL pattern. So that localhost colon 8080 slash will execute this method.
Okay. But I want its name. Okay.
No,
There's
name we
no.
cannot configure that. If you want to configure the name, you need to write one method. From that, you need to redirect it to that method.
Okay.
Directly, you cannot configure that. So only slash you can make as a default.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next one. Yes, sir.
Actually, we are display the whenever exception is happening, we are not displaying anything about, just we are displaying some message.
The
instead of
exception
displaying
information we will log. We don't display exception to the customer. Customer will not understand what is arithmetic or null point or anything. So in future, we are going to learn logging concept. Whenever exception occurred, here we need to implement logger to
instead
log
of
that exception to the log file.
the content of exception handling that we display on log files. Is it good for no?
Yes, right. Here we will do that logging.
Okay, thank you. That is information about exception details.
Exception. What exception occurred, when occurred, why occurred, that we are going to log in our method in the log file. It will go to the log file.
Sure.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. In Ajax, I'm getting 405, sir.
Yeah, we'll check that, sir. We'll see that. I will share my workspace. Yeah, fine, guys. Good. So with this, I'm stopping for today. And I want all of you to complete that assignments I have given. One is Ajax call assignment, and the second one is form validation with the email sending assignment is available. If you don't try the things on your own, you will not learn anything. So trying and implementing, that is the most important part. Yes, sir. What is your question? It will be directly loading that error.html file, but you can't send any exception data from controller to UI. So if you want to send some information from controller to UI, even for the error page also, it's better to send through controller advise method, so that controller can send some information to the UI. If you go for only error.html directly, that's like a static HTML page will be loaded. Yes, guys, I have updated the notes for today. So please work on the assignments before coming to tomorrow's session. Thank you.